Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's evening. I'm very happy and honored to be moderating my dear friend Lakshmi's book reading today and the Q&A session. Lakshmi and I have been very close friends right from college, and this evening I hope will be an interesting one for you as we engage in discussing her book. I'll begin by introducing Lakshmi to you. Lakshmi was with me in Xavier's, and I remember she was in the science department doing biochemistry. So she has a degree, a postgraduate degree in biochemistry from the Bombay University, and she's also an author. She suddenly began to write books, and before I knew it, I was being invited to book launches of hers. And one of the books, and some of the books that she's written, some of you may know this very nice one on the Sufi shrines of Ajmer, and then another one on the Dargah of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, and then she's written another book, Guide to the Gentleman Chef, and a little book for children, Chimmy's Dream. She also works making animation films for children. She's very passionately involved in the environment, and many of those books, lovely little short stories and animation films about animals in the forest, looking after the forest and making sure that the environment is in place, hopefully. The flow of today's evening will be that after I've just introduced her, we'll be having a bit of a screening of the essence of the book, so you'll get an idea about the book, and then her daughter, Veda, who is sitting over here, will read some of the passages. And then subsequently, I'll be engaged in a question and answer session with Lakshmi. We've come up to this point, I just thought I'd say something about the book in the meantime. What is really fascinating about the book is that there is just so much of material that she's managed to give supporting evidence to. And one of the things that I maybe hope to discuss with her is how she found all those papers, that there are all those letters that exist from Gandhi, which she still has, and that's really part of an incredible historical period that has taken place. And another interesting thing is that, which will probably be said by Urvashi Potalia in the next part of the clip, is what is most unusual is that they were married by a Dalit, because Gandhiji insisted that the Dalit would perform the rites. And this was really unusual, two Brahmins being married by a Dalit who had converted to Christianity. Because that was, the reason that Gandhiji said he would sort of come there and get them married. And Gandhiji's whole commitment, first he says, okay, I'm not going to do this, but then he said that I have given you a promise in writing, and then I'll sort of come and stick to my promise. Lakshmi, I remember you telling me when we were in Belgundi how you came across this box that your mother had, which started you off on this trip, of wanting to write a book about your parents. Can you tell me something, can you tell us all something about the process of how all this started and began?
My father died in 1975. I was just 20 years old. And I had grown up with these stories, and I sort of had them at the back of my mind, but they were not stories that I wanted to explore at that age or at that time. Luckily for me, just before he died, he had made a chronology, a list. And on a piece of paper, he had written year-wise where he was born, where he had studied, what he had done, when he had gone to Berlin, when he was in Göttingen University, when he did his PhD, when he came back. So he was a very sort of systematic person. And I treasured this piece of paper. So later, it was only after my mother passed away in 2006 that I realized that I had to write this story now, because it was now or never. And I had this piece of paper with me. And on the basis of this paper, I was able to go back and do reference. For instance, the newspaper articles of my father. I was able to tell this gentleman, Dr. Gunter, who was helping me, that these are the times when my father worked as a journalist in the newspaper. So he went and he got the newspaper articles. You know, so this time frame is very important. If you're able to tell somebody the exact time, it becomes very simple. And two other things which helped me a lot. One was my mother's little box that she kept with Gandhiji's letters and correspondence and the whole procedure of their wedding, which was drafted by Kaka Sahib Kalilkar, and those came in handy. But another source which was amazing was somebody rang me up. They found they sent an email to me on my website, and they told me that they have come across some files with the CID on my father and his brothers. Now, what happened in the 30s, anybody who went abroad, the CID, which was the British CID, opened a file on him. And my father and his three brothers all went to Germany in the 30s, so there was a file on each of them. And these CID files were closed only on the death of the person. And this is actually where I was able to have a look and take a copy of some of the newspaper articles. So it was just a fantastic process, and I really believe that if something has to be done, the universe just supports you, and you have to just start doing something, and then, you know, people started giving me incidents, letters, photographs, and that's how the book came to happen.
Yes, the book is remarkably well researched. There's an amazing amount of research that's taken place in both Germany and in India. And I love the way you integrate it all, so it doesn't seem like it's heavily researched, but it just sort of flows like a very interesting novel. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your reaction when, well, I know my reaction when you told me. I think I was in college and you mentioned Thea von Harbu, and we're all, I mean, I'm a student of cinema and some of my friends here, and Thea von Harbu was a magical name. It was a name that was in the textbooks. You know, Fritz Lang's wife, the author of, you know, Fritz Lang was a great German expressionistic filmmaker. He'd made Metropolis, he'd made M, and those films were like, you know, textbook material, and they were great. And to think that my friend's father was married to Thea von Harbu was like very exciting. I really found it tough to believe. So it was, I mean, I wanted to know from Lakshmi what it felt like when she heard these stories that, you know, her father had been married earlier to Thea von Harbu. And I just wanted to know also a little bit about how her mother reacted initially to knowing this. Hold on.
Well, actually, there's one more film star who we haven't mentioned, and that's Gregory Peck. And I know that when I mentioned it to Jeru and Parag and these people, because they knew about Fritz Lang and Thea von Harbu, they looked at me, you know, oh, okay. Problem is that we didn't have Google at that time. You know, at least if they had Google, they'd have gone and they'd done a web search on Thea von Harbu, and they would have seen Thea von Harbu was married to I. Tendulkar, you know, and they would have believed me. But they all gave me this sort of looking down attitude. So I kept quiet. And now the other famous person who was a film star and who was very close to my family was Gregory Peck. My father's first wife was a Russian called Sasha Alexandra, who he met when they both were studying at the Sorbonne. And they also were married, and unfortunately, I tried to mention it in the book, but my publisher just knocked it out. The mention is there, but I had wanted to publish this beautiful letter that Shasha wrote to me before she died, and she sent me a photograph, and my father was 19 and she was 18. Her daughter later married Gregory Peck. And when Gregory Peck came to India in 1954, this was before their marriage, they came and met my father, and they met my mother. And so this was another story that I just kept quiet, because when you're young, you don't really want people to feel that you're different from them, and this kind of illustrious background, and my father and mother wearing khaddar even till late, was something I just kept quiet about. And when I was in Presentation Convent, and my friends are here, and we used to see these Gregory Peck movies, To Kill a Mockingbird and all that. I tried to tell a few people that, you know, Gregory Peck is related to me, but they just looked at me, so what do I do? So these were stories that we grow about with, and I must go one further, and I said, thank God for Google. Because Google has brought information and knowledge to everybody. And when Gregory Peck and his wife, what's her name, Veronique, when they were shooting for Sea Wolves in 76 or 77, Goa, she actually rang up every Tendulkar in the telephone book until she came to me. And she says, "Oh, hello, may I speak to Mrs. Tendulkar?" I said, "Yeah, who's speaking?" So she says, "I'm Veronique." I said, "Oh my God, you're Shasha's daughter?" And she says, "Yes, finally you're the right person, because every Tendulkar has invited me for lunch or dinner." So anyway, she met me. She said her daughter Cecilia's here, and they both met me at the Taj, and then I spent time with them in Goa when they were shooting for Silvers. So these were stories that one grew up with. So there was nothing, and my parents, there was nothing hidden. I mean, entire marriage of my parents, their love affair, everything was on letters, Gandhiji, there was nothing hidden. So I didn't react to it in any special manner because I grew up with this. But to convince my friends was always the problem.
While reading your book, actually, I was fascinated more by your mother because of the feminist angle. An amazing woman who was Gandhian, who said that she wasn't going to listen to her parents and was fascinated by this man who had come in that red car. It was Mercedes. It was gifted to him by Thea von Habu, and he used to zip around that small little village in that red Mercedes. And this woman fell in love with him and defied her parents and continued to meet him in spite of the odds. And she was a Gandhian, and she worked in Sarvodaya and Sevagram, sorry. And I'm fascinated by her and her strength. And she went to prison, and she was continuously doing things for the women. I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that strength, that inner strength that she had, that defiance that she had, because that was quite amazing.
Yes, I think my mother was very special, and she grew up at a time when things were very difficult. I mean, today to hear stories about women doing things that she had done is very common. But in a small place like Belgaum, to ride a cycle, and she had a younger sister who's still alive, who's 97. So both of them had been encouraged by my grandfather to educate themselves, to swim, to ride cycles. And I don't think they expected her to go to the extent that she did. And she was always a die-hard romantic. My father was a very attractive man and a great charmer, and she did fall in love with him. But I think the incidents in life, the World War coming, my father's political detainment in the prison because of his association with Germany, and incidentally my mother had to leave the house for two reasons. One was because 3 of her brothers wanted to join the British Army. And when the British generals realized that their sister was already a Congress worker working with Gandhiji, they threw the 3 brothers out of the prison. And so my grandfather came out very strong, and he said that either you leave Tendulkar or you leave the family. So she wasn't, her brothers were very angry with her. They said, our career in the army is gone. And so she was actually thrown in the mouth of the dragon, who was my father, and was very happy that she was. The problem is that the war went on for 5 years, he was put into prison. So it was really, really very difficult for her, but she was stubborn. And this whole interface with Gandhiji happened because she refused to go home. And Gandhiji my grandfather writing to Gandhiji and asking him to involve himself in this, I don't think was, that's the way that happened, but I'm sure my father must have been very, very mad with her, with my grandfather, for bringing their personal love story so much into the public. But in a way, when the freedom struggle was out, you'll find all the letters in the book also. They're very interesting letters. But once Gandhiji did get them married in front of all the other political leaders, and of course, that gave tremendous support to my father when he started his industry in Bagalkot. He was trying to start an aluminum project, because he had the backing of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was an amazing industrialist and an amazing person. So Vallabhbhai Patel, Gandhiji, Morarji Desai, Nijalingappa. So these were the stalwarts of the post-independence era, and they all gave tremendous support to them. And also that sort of negated this romance and going and running away and living in the village. And I mean, can you imagine in Belgaum? I mean, gossip was crazy, and everybody knew about these two sisters, and they were both incredibly beautiful. So they would talk of the town for a long time.
I'd like you to reflect a little bit about what you've written. Hello. You know, in the book you've talked about her days in prison. My God, you know, it's amazing the strength of this woman to go into prison and suffer what she did. And at the same time, I think I. Tendulkar was also in prison around the same time, right? So can you talk a little bit more about her prison experiences and the convictions that she had to go to prison because she wanted to do something for social upliftment, because she wanted to do something for the country? Because I don't know that nowadays you find that kind of commitment in any one of us in society. Most of us today, with, you know, in the period of globalization, just concentrated on money and making more money, and none of those kind of values seem to be entering into the space that we're living in now.
When she was in Belgundi, in the village where we live now, she and Ghati Guruji, who was another Gandhian, they went to 70 villages to tell the villagers not to support the British and to not to resist what the British wanted, and even if they had to go to prison, support Gandhiji throughout. It was eventually one of the Tashildars of the, I don't know what they used to call them, the Tashildars of the village that reported to the British, and she was put into prison. Of course, her 2 years in prison were not comfortable like my father's 5 years were, because he was a political détenu. He could have his books, he could get food from outside, he could get newspapers. For her, she was, I think, she had to, you know, she was in a cell with 20 other women, and the conditions were pathetic. And I mean, she used to tell me how the blanket had sort of so many bed bugs, and, you know, living was, the food was stone cold, cooked maybe 8 hours ago by the convicts, and how in the night she used to hear the shrieks of women, because at that time there was no place in the mental asylums. So all the women who were crazy were also put into the prisons. So, you know, the kind of scenario was very bad, and she actually suffered a heart attack while she was in prison. So she was released a little earlier, and then she was very ill, so when she got out, she had to go through that. But, you know, the thing is that everybody has got these histories and these stories, whether it's because of World War I, World War II, partition. You know, each of us have some story of suffering and some story where our grandfathers, our fathers, our uncles and aunts have gone through this very period of time to give us this wonderful globalization that we have. And I feel that I've been very lucky that I've been able to pen my story down on paper. It took me a long time. It took me 5 years to write this book before I met my publisher. And then once she agreed, she very sweetly told me in my first meeting, you have to rewrite it. I said, what? So, as Jeru mentioned, from historic fiction, I had to make it into a first-person account. So, I think it's very important for all of us to be able to record our histories and our stories, and these stories of suffering, because people in the 30s and 40s and 50s, a lot of them suffered a lot.
I think we should be grateful for all of those people who have given us this freedom. Now I'd like to switch to Germany, and I'd like to ask you a little bit about the relationship that Thea von Harbou had with Hitler, and the Nazi period, and the denazification certificate that you found, and all the sort of, you know, allegations leveled against her about being a Nazi, and then why, and the way she was helping students. So perhaps you could elaborate on that just a little bit. And also about what your father did and the kind of articles that he wrote in Germany.
I'll start with the last thing. My father was working for the Berliner Tageblatt as a correspondent for the India desk. So any journalists who wanted to write anything about India could meet him or could ask him for advice. And the newspaper sent him twice or thrice to India, and he actually followed the National Congress committees. And he, because he already knew Gandhiji, knew Vallabhbhai Patel, so he traveled with them, and he was reporting on this thing. So the articles, there are many articles, but I've just produced 3 on the movie, they're not in the book, talk about the situation in India. And even at that time, he would write in his articles that he was very unsure about, even if the British left India, how Indians would be able to govern themselves. And I think a lot of people in journalism worried about that, and I think that's come true. I mean, I remember reading a saying of Winston Churchill, who says that when Indians govern themselves, there's going to be a disaster. Anyway, Thea von Harbu and Hitler. My book is not about Thea von Harbu and Hitler. My book is about Thea von Harbu and my father. So I choose not to comment on this. There are enough articles, there are enough books that have written that it wasn't really Hitler, it was Goebbels. Goebbels was the minister of propaganda ministry. And there was a film that Fritz Lang and Thea von Harbu made called The Nibelungen. And in the Nibelungen, they described the mythology of the German race and how it was the Anglo-Saxon, the Aryan race was more noble and stuff. And I'm told that Goebbels and Hitler and people liked the film very much. But I don't know, because I'm not an expert in cinema, and I've not gone into that. But for me, reading the denazification certificate of Thea von Harbu was very important, because she mentions in the denazification certificate how she had to go out of her way to help a lot of Jewish colleagues of hers, whether they were actors, actresses, whether they were her own Fritz Lang secretary. Fritz Lang was also supposed to be half German, and one of the reasons why he left Berlin to go to Hollywood was because of his Jewish parentage. But Thea von Harbu always tried very hard to help people and look after to whatever extent she could. And in our family, Thea was not considered a Nazi. Thea was considered a very wonderful and a generous benefactor.
Thank you. Back to India. I think Tendulkar comes back, and there's this letter that was written, an article that your mother wrote, and her first meeting with Tendulkar, and how it was Tendulkar's paper that published what she wrote and the research that she did. And then perhaps after that you could just talk a little bit more about Gandhi and the marriage, and we could conclude.
Jeru asks amazing questions here. Okay. My mother came to Belgaum because it was actually Mrinalini Sarabhai who had asked her to write an article on the child labor in the bidi, the cigarette bidi, the bidi factories in Nipani. Nipani is very close to Belgaum. So she wrote an article, and she realized that no other newspaper would publish it. And my aunt told her that, there's this Tendulkar, we'll go and meet him. So my mother said that, this Tendulkar must be some foreigner and must be some very wicked person. So they both chose a time when his Mercedes was not parked under the newspaper office. So they climbed the stairs and they opened the door, and Tendulkar himself was standing there. So anyway, he published the article, and I think that's the time when they met and sparks started to fly. And Jeru asked me also to talk to you about the marriage. The marriage was a very austere marriage, and the ceremony itself, as you saw in the video, the priest Prabhakar was a Harijan who had been converted into Christianity. And the vows are very simple, they're all in the book, and they had to take a promise that they'd read chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, which stands for service, that they would put service for the country before anything else, that they'd both clean places and look after things. And then Gandhiji imposed a condition on them that first, there was a lot of correspondence because Gandhiji had told them that they should enter a marriage of celibacy. And my father refused. He says, no, I don't think anybody can deny Hindu the right to have children. So Gandhiji said, okay, then don't have children till independence. And I think there was a lot of flack about this because the newspapers had got very critical of Gandhiji's. This was not the first time that it had happened where Gandhiji tried to enforce celibacy. And Gandhiji actually had to reproduce my father's letter to Gandhiji, to the newspaper, and that my father's letter was published. And to explain that Gandhiji had succeeded to what he had wanted, and he had agreed to what he had wanted. They got married in 45, and we got independence in 47. And for some reason, my father sent my mother to study in Michigan, Ann Arbor for 2 years. And then on her return in 49, then my brother was born in 50.
Thank you. How did your mother react to this news about the need to be celibate? What was her opinion, and did she ever discuss this with you?
She never expressed her view. She always expressed my father's view, and obviously he was mad.
Yeah. Well, I think we've got a pretty good idea of the book and her process. And of course, you have to read the book because there's so much in it and there's so many lovely details. But we'd like some questions from the audience now, please. How was the book received in Germany?
I haven't taken it to Germany yet. I had a wonderful launch at the Jaipur Literary Festival, and then we had a small launch in London. But for some reason, London has become very stuffy about, they don't even review books that are not published in the UK. And because this is Zuban, which is an Indian publisher, it's become crazy. So you have to have an international publisher. But I don't know how the book will be received in Germany because I think people still feel that Thea von Harbu may be a Nazi. And also, I don't know if they really want to know more about Gandhi. If they want to go into the details of the early life and Gandhiji's life. The book, this is a problem because this is the publisher's this thing. I know that on Flipkart, the e-book is available. No, but I can't because it's a publisher's right. But the e-book is available on Flipkart. And I have a lot of interviews, and if you go to my website, which is www.lakshmidhol.com, and you go to the events, you will find all the talks of Dilip Padgaonkar, who's written the foreword, and Suhail Seth, and of course my husband Harry. So all the events I've put in YouTube links on my website, which you can get. The book is Marathi publisher called Prakash, something or the other. They've already, they're in touch with my publisher for translating into Marathi. No, not publisher, some Raj Hounds Prakash. And I'm also trying to get a Bengali publisher. And it's a very tiring task, because if you, for instance, have a book launch, the local newspapers will comment about it. Like Delhi, I've had wonderful newspaper reports, but nothing has come to Bombay. So Bombay, unless I have a launch, which I'm having on the 3rd of October at the NCPA, and all of you are invited, there you'll have Suhail Seth, Dilip Padgaonkar, and Anil Dharkar. And they're both, all three of them are excellent speakers. So then the news will talk about it. So it's a very tiring task to go from city to city. There's no one all India agency that does it. I'm waiting for the universe to do that. Because I'm not a filmmaker. And we have Mr. Jyotin Goel there and Mr. Parag Amladi. And, these are stalwarts in the film industry. And I'm sure if they took the initiative, we'd go somewhere. Thank you, Jeru, for moderating so beautifully. And Veda, your passages are fabulous. I'm sure your grandparents would be very proud of you. And thank you, Mrs. Rinkin and the Library Committee for organizing this event.